Hello YouTube, this is Landon, also known as Redhead Takes. We're here at Redhead Takes. I am a redhead, but I have takes that I want to share with you. And if you want to listen, be so obliged. Today we'll be discussing another NFL division. Today we'll set forth on the NFC East. A lot of change in this division from team to team, top to bottom. And if you're a fan of any of these teams, I hope I do justice to each team. It's never my intention to piss anybody off, like apparently I did with my last video, where I made a bunch of butthurt Atlanta Falcons fans cry and make them think like they're actually good. They have some future in the progress, but they're not going to be very good this year. The Atlanta Falcons are not going to be good. They may not go 1-17 like my video implied, but they're not going to be very good. Definitely not a playoff team by any means. If they do, then everybody will be wrong, because who is really picking the Atlanta Falcons so far? Unless you're a Falcons fan. But anyway, I digress. Let's get started with the NFC East. And as always, first to last, I go through the teams. I give you my thoughts, then we go through teams first to last. Start out with the Dallas Cowboys, of course, who I went back and forth on this, whether I put Eagles or Dallas at top, because honestly I think the Eagles can make a change and go to the top because of some of the issues they fixed on their team. They got some receivers, but I'm going to stick with Dallas just because they're probably going to win, but I'm not sure. It could go either way. Now they re-signed, gave a big extension to Michael Gallup. They signed James Washington, who both those receivers will not be ready for week 1. Gallup probably won't play for at least a couple of weeks. Probably week 5 or 6 he comes back, and James Washington, I don't know how long he'll be out. I think he hurt his foot, so who knows how long that'll take. So if you're looking for them as fantasy options, I would hold off and look for a later rounds. Yeah, James Washington and Michael Gallup could be good picks for you in later drafts, and they should be ready for later in the season. Just they won't be ready for the first couple of weeks, from what I heard. And then they re-signed DeMarcus Lawrence, luckily for them, because I've heard they tried to screw him, just like they did Randy Gregory. Brought in Anthony Barr, should be decent, I guess. Whose only claim to fame is really injuring Aaron Rodgers. Wade Hooker, re-signed Leighton Vander Esch, brought in Dante Fowler for some reason, and then they drafted Tyler Smith at offensive tackle, who should be a good spot in there. I mean, their offensive line should still be good this year, should be a little better than last year, since hopefully they won't be so injured for their sake. And then they lost offensive lineman Whale Collins, of course, defensive end Randy Gregory, because, like I said, they had to deal with him, and then they tried to screw him in the end. And then he left, and I don't blame him for leaving. Devontae Casey, Keanu Neal, they lost Amari Cooper, of course, with that awful trade to the Browns. It now looks really terrible because they only got a 5th round pick back for him. And they lost offensive guard Connor Williams. Now I like Dallas to be about as good as they were last year. I like Ezekiel Elliott to rebound this year. I mean, he didn't really have a bad year last year. He should still be just as good. Hopefully for their sake, he continues to do well for their sake, since they paid him so much money with that awful contract. And Dak Prescott should be one of the underrated quarterbacks in the league. I think he's still probably top 10 or maybe just outside. I don't want to piss on him too much because he's shown that he can do well in the league. It's just a matter of him staying healthy or being consistent. Although that playoff loss last year is kind of shows how well he does in the playoffs. Again, he's just not a great quarterback in the playoffs, unfortunately for Cowboys fans. And then I don't know if any of you watching saw the video of him, of Trayvon Diggs in training camp getting burned by practice squad wide receivers. So he's getting burned so often that he deleted his Twitter account, so that's pretty funny. And I mean, Trayvon Diggs is a good player. I mean, he gets a lot of interceptions, but he gets burned all the time. So can he really be one of the best quarterbacks if you get burned all the time? I mean, yeah, he's opportunistic, but again, he gets burned all the time. I like the Cowboys to go 10-7, probably. I mean, just like most years, no one's is probably going to come down to the last week. And I think the Cowboys should probably be in the playoffs again this year. 10-7, maybe 11-6. Or it could be even worse than that. Worse than 10-7, maybe even 9-8. But I don't know. Let's get on to the Eagles, who had a pretty good offseason, from my account. Trading for A.J. Brown, who should be an instant upgrade over what they had last year. Hassan Reddick should provide pass rush, run stoppage. Should be have a great season for sacks again. Bring in Duquesky Tart from San Francisco. Re-sign Fletcher Cox, had to do it. Zach Pascal, another decent wide receiver for them. Bring in James Bradbury on a 1-year deal, who just didn't fit in well with the Giants for whatever reason. Should still be good. Bring back Derek Barnett, Jason Kelsey, and then they drafted Jordan Davis, who should be just a load there in the middle of the defensive line. I really like Jordan Davis. I was hoping he would have fallen to the Packers, but I knew he wasn't going to fall that far. And then they lost Jordan Howard, Brandon Brooks to retirement, so there's a long time piece on that offensive line gone. Rodney McLeod, and yeah. They didn't lose too many players, I suppose. I guess a lot of the players that I could tell from the list that they seemed to lose were just players that aren't really going to make a difference anywhere else. I think this might be the year Jalen Hurts finally has a chance to really prove that he can really be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he probably should, because he could, get a big raise next year. I think it's time for him to almost get a raise, and now he has wide receiver support. Their offensive line should be a little better this year, and hopefully, since there's going to be wide receivers where Miles Sanders can finally show what he can do when they drafted him so high a couple years ago. I've had Miles Sanders on my fantasy team ever since he was drafted, and for whatever reason, he looks really good, and then they just move away from him for whatever reason. I don't know. Then they use all their other running backs. Please, if you want to show what Miles Sanders can do, give him more run. I know he's had injury issues the past couple of years, but he still has it. He's shown that he can be a pretty good 3-down back in the NFL. And like I said with Jalen Hurts, again, this is his year. A.J. Brown is a bona fide star wide receiver. He's going to get a lot of attention, but he's A.J. Brown. He's really hard to cover. And then Zach Pascal, of course, and all the guys they've had from drafted over the past couple of years. Devontae Smith should have a rebound year, because he won't be the number one target, probably. And yeah, I like the Eagles, probably 10-7, maybe 11-6. Like I said at the beginning, I went back and forth between Dallas and Philadelphia, who would take first, but ultimately I went with Dallas, although I could very possibly see Philly getting the first spot. But honestly, their fans don't deserve it. Philly fans are the worst in the NFL by far. No disrespect, but honestly, I do mean disrespect because you booed Santa Claus, you're terrible. But yeah, 10-7 is very possible. 11-6, if everybody shines and they don't have a lot of injuries like they've had past couple of years. So yeah, let's go to the Washington Redskins. I mean Commanders, which is the most generic name in the NFL. In a league full of generic names, Commanders is obviously the worst, but you might as well call them the Washington Commies because, for obvious reasons I don't want to go into here. Bringing in Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz should still be fine at quarterback. I know he had his issues in Indy last year. Still like him as a quarterback. And they re-signed, or they gave Terry McLaurin a big extension. Or he's definitely a good go-to, gotta get wide receiver in fantasy. For those of you out there that play fantasy football, just some stats on him. He was 11 for 32 on deep balls last year. Now that stat line might be deceiving, but when you look closer, all those 11 passes that were caught, or he caught all 11 of those passes. Every other one was not his fault. So he's definitely gonna do just as well as he has the past couple of years. He'll now have a quarterback that can always throw the ball down the field with some reasonable amount of accuracy. So, and then they added offensive guard Andrew Norwell, who should fit in decently on the offensive line. Brought back J.D. McKissick, who spurned the Bills for whatever reason. I don't know why you'd rather play with the Commies instead of the Bills. Bring in Trey Turner, F.A. Obata, and they drafted Jahan Dotson at wide receiver, who should be good at wide receiver. Should be a good change of pace wide receiver from Terry McLaurin. Now, it's weird that they traded their first round pick and they got Dotson when they could have gotten somebody else also. Traded with the Saints, so Saints gain. But they must really like Jahan Dotson, so we'll see how they do. I don't know. The Commies are just one of those teams that I just dislike following just because their terrible owner he's objectively awful. I don't spurn anybody for how they made their money or anything, but this guy sucks. I don't think the team will be good until he's gone. But since he's a younger owner, he probably won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Now let's get to their losses. They lost Brandon Scherf, longtime stalwart on that offensive line. That'll hurt them a lot, I think. Lost Eric Flowers, DeAndre Carter. Sadly, it was the end of Fitz Magic, who retired finally. Defensive tackle Matt Ioannidis, defensive tackle Tim Settle, and they lost Ricky Seals-Jones, who went to the Giants. We'll talk about him later. So, to be honest, I think the Commies I don't know how good they're going to be this year, to be honest. I think they should be maybe in the playoff hunt, reasonable enough, I don't know. But honestly, they're a couple players away from being genuinely awful, so they're just hard to tell. And Antonio Gibson, for those playing fantasy, I would fade him really a lot. It's just he's gonna lose goal line touches. J.D. McKissick just has shown he's better at the goal line, and Antonio Gibson is just, he has those good games, but he just doesn't wow anybody. The Commies should go, I don't know, 8-9, I think is reasonable. Maybe even 7-10. And if all things go well, maybe 10-7, but I don't know. I don't think so, honestly. Like I said, the Commies are just a hard team to talk about. Not a big fan of them. Never have been. They're just hard to watch. They changed their name for no reason whatsoever, just because of a couple people find it offensive. Even though you ask an overwhelming amount of Native Americans, they're not offended by the Redskins name. It's been that way forever. So yeah, let's get into the Giants. Let's say with the Commies quick, could be a playoff team. I don't think so. They could very well end up in last, if I'm being honest. I don't know how all the Giants additions will work out, but I really like what the Giants are doing so far with their recent draft and in the offseason. Bringing Tyrod Taylor, quarterback, decent backup. Matt Breida, Ricky James, offensive line John Feliciano. As I said before, they brought in Ricky Seals-Jones, who I guess has had his moments. Maybe since he'll be the primary tight end in this offense, maybe he'll shine a little more. Offensive line Mark Lewinsky is their big ad. Brought him over from the Colts. Jihad Ward, and then they drafted defensive end Kayvon Thibodeau, should be a beast. And then they brought in Evan Neal at offensive tackle, who's just a load in the offensive line. He should be a great addition. May need a little seasoning, but he'll find his role for sure. And then they lost Devontae Booker, who was surprisingly good fantasy player last year at times. I never had him, but from what I could hear from everybody else I play with, he did really well. Evan Ingram, who is one Pro Bowl appearance with the Giants, was just all smoke and mirrors, really. It was not great. Might as well call him Evan Hands of Stone Ingram, to be honest, if you're asking me. Losing Will Hernandez on the offensive line, Nate Solder too. James Bradbury, they couldn't come to an agreement with him, so they just released him. Lost Jabril Peppers, or traded him away. I thought they did. Or they lost Jabril Peppers, they lost Logan Ryan and Kyle Rudolph, so let's go into some of their offseason. I think their offensive line, like I said, should be improved. Evan Neal is just going to be a great addition, I think, in that offensive line. Giants' first round just was really respectable this year. After so many years of just so many misses. Yeah, I think they finally had a really good draft this year. We'll see what happens with Kadarius Toney. It's just, he's so talented, but he's such a head case already. It's hopefully for their sake, Kenny Galladay will be able to return from injury and actually get some touchdowns this year. Remains to be seen, but and then they added Brian Dable as their head coach, who is a generally great coach. I like him to finally change the culture in New York at least a little bit. Brian Dable is going to be a great coach for the Giants. To be honest, he was the one who made Josh Allen into a great quarterback. He was the one that helped change his mechanics around and actually make him worthy of his his first round selection. And hopefully he can do the same with Daniel Jones. Although, from what I've heard out of Giants camp, Daniel Jones is not doing well. And I really like Daniel Jones. I want him to succeed. I think he has promise for sure. But it's just, if he can just work out on his fumble problem, he should be better. But again, his accuracy seems to be an issue for him. He does a lot of young quarterbacks. Some figure it out, a lot of them don't. So Giants, I think, will be improved. I don't think they'll be in it for a playoff run, but like I said, they should be improved. Probably 5-12, or maybe even 6-11. I think those might be reasonable figures. I don't think they're going to be at the bottom of the league. Maybe in the lower 2/3, but not at the direct bottom. 5-11, maybe 6-9 if all, or 6-11 if all things go well. But I like the changes they're making. Hopefully Brian Daboll doesn't turn into eventually become what Joe Judge became, just another loser. Just can't coach in the NFL. But yeah, my NFC East breaks down like Dallas most likely number 1, 10-7, 11-6. Eagles, same possible records. Like I said, I think whoever wins that series probably wins first. The Commies, 9-8, 8-9, that region I think is reasonable for them. And then Giants 5-12, 6-11 and 6-11 if all things work out. Maybe we get 7-10, but let's hold out on that a little bit. Giants should be better. Commies, who knows? Eagles should definitely be better. Or, I mean, they made the playoffs last year, but they should look better. They should look like a team that deserved to be in the playoffs. And that's all I have to say on the NFC East. As always, you can find me at my Twitch channel, twitchtv.com/redheadtakes, where I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 right now. You can find me at twitter.com/redheadtakes, where I give daily hot takes on any subject, mostly sports right now. And then you can find me at redheadtakes.locals.com, which is a free Facebook alternative. And you can talk to me there about anything without any fear of being censored or anything. I mean, I wouldn't censor anybody anyway, but Locals is a great site that doesn't censor people in general. And yeah, you can find me at all those sites. I hope you have a great day, and God bless.